I've received quite a number of emails and communications over the last couple of weeks inquiring what the differences are between the new Mark V regulator and the previous Mark IV regulator, which is sold extensively worldwide. These questions have generally come from owners of the Mark 1, 2, 3 and 4, and it's asking if they were to trade in or sell off their regulator and get the new Mark V, would it provide them with any better accuracy of air regulation and provide more shots, etc. The general easy answer to this is no. The working dimensions on the regulators, whether it's a Mark 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, have always remained the same. The difference has always really been just in overall dimensions and slight shaping of the case, etc. So here in my right hand is the Mark IV, and here in the left hand is the Mark V. So as you'll see between these two, the differences are the tail of the body case, where the adjuster screw is very slightly shorter in length. The back flange holding in the back body case O-ring just here near my thumb, the one nearest the breathe hole, is about 1 millimetre thinner, and at the front of the regulator you can see that there's the addition of a circlip and an M5 metric thread down the centre of the piston, and this is purely been done to make it easier for some people to extract the regulator from their air reservoir for service or adjustment. And this has been requested by the customers mostly in the United States, but also in Eastern Europe and Malaysia. I think there's some guns out there with fixed or capped cylinders, and it's difficult, well, can be quite difficult to get the Mark IV out, and so people had them modified before purchase. So now we've taken that on, and you can have the regulator without the circlip in, or without it fitted, or with it fitted in at time of purchase. It doesn't affect the operation or function of the regulator at all. It's purely there for extraction. When I talk about the working dimensions, we're talking about the spring. This has always been made to the same dimensions, tolerances, and out of the same gauge of spring steel, no matter which regulator you've got. Even for one-off custom regulators, going right back to when we first started making them, I think about 15, 16 or so years ago, they've always been the same. So that's the same. The piston head diameter is the same on all models, and that hasn't altered at all. And this also goes for the diameter of the piston stem or spool, and the hole or bore down the centre of the piston stem. This has also remained as a constant inside diameter. Likewise, so as the thread and the Delrin insert on the adjuster screw, and these are the working parts that oscillate back and forth, and this is the part that's adjusted to adjust the pressure, working pressure. But those parts, no matter whether it's a 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5, have always remained the same. There has been some slight changes in the length of the adjuster screw and in the length of the piston stem or spool by a short amount, and that's really the only differences that have been over the years. Now with the Mark V, we've gone down to having one seal on the piston, because it shouldn't make any difference to whether it's a 2 or 1 seal. We used to fit 2 just for extra sealing really, and give extra longevity, because that's the moving component. So that's why we put those on. But being as we've had no problems testing with a single seal, and most other people use a single seal, we've removed the front seal on the piston, and that's given us enough room to insert the circlip groove and the circlip So what we're talking about when we say we've been asked because it's been difficult to extract some regulators, this is what we're talking about. Some customers have got a cylinder that, unlike this one here where both ends have unscrewed out of it, they've got cylinders that are capped at the fill valve end, or it's been stud locked in during manufacture and they're unable to remove it. So basically, instead of having a straight through cylinder where they can use a metal rod or a plastic dowel or wooden dowel to push the regulator out if they want to remove it, they've actually got a blanked off, dead-ended cylinder. And so getting the regulator out, like the Mark IV, it is possible. It's not that difficult, but you still have to make up a tool and it can be a bit of a hassle. So customers asked us, they said, would it be possible for you to simply put the circlip and the thread in for us, and then once the regulator's in position in the rifle, if you want to take it out for maintenance, servicing or adjustment, then all we've got to do is use either a piece of M5 threaded rod and screw it in and pull it out of the cylinder, or if you've not got a piece of M5 threaded rod, just a M5 screw, which come in all shapes and sizes, and a pair of pliers, and take hold of it like that and then pull it out of the cylinder. So that's the difference between the Mark IV and the Mark V. But in terms of operation, how accurate it is at regulating out the set pressure, that's just as accurate as it was before, and there's no real difference. Now, if you're wondering what the differences were with the previous models, like the Mark 1, 2 and 3, this is also hopefully quite simple to explain. Originally, on the Mark 1, the air used to get through to the piston just by bleeding round the thread. We soon found that it was more accurate regulation if the air passed by quicker and the piston closed firmer, and so we then used to mill a little slot down the side of the thread on the next model, and that helped improve the regulation. And then after that we decided it'd be better to put the hole straight through the side of the body case. As you'll see on this body case, it's got a flange on the back, and this was because originally the regulators were just to fit into the Brocock and the air arms, and people fitting them in the air arms with the offset air arms valve just wanted to butt it straight up to the end of the valve housing. Because the valve's offset, it could twist the regulator in the cylinder and cause some stress, and so to stop that we fitted the flange on the back. But since more people have started buying the regulators all over the world for a greater range of rifles, we've put this step on. You can see on this one there's not a step at the front, but we've put this little step on to sort of hold the outlet valve standoff in place. All the regulators now come with an outlet valve standoff, and to make the regulator cheaper and easier to produce, we've removed the flange, which means it's easier to machine up as opposed to cutting in from the side and leaving the flange there. So as you can see, there hasn't really been any major changes right from the Mark 1 to the Mark 5. If you're wondering, is there any difference in how the regulators should be treated and serviced, they should all be treated and serviced in exactly the same way as is shown on the videos on this channel. The only difference is on the front of the Mark 5 you've got the circlip to remove before you can take the piston out and take the regulator to pieces. This is quite simply done. If you go to your local hardware or look on eBay or any other tools auction site, you should be able to find circlip pliers. These come, and they all generally look like this, usually in a pack with about 4 to 6 interchangeable ends. You can change the end from that side to this, where it locates on the pins for either opening or closing type circlips, and a set of these are normally between about £3 and £10. Very simple to use. So the only difference is between the Mark IV and the Mark V as regards servicing is you need a set of circlip pliers, or in some cases a small set of jewellers pliers will do. Compress the circlip and take it out, and then you'd remove the piston, clean it, service it and reassemble it exactly the same as before. And as you can imagine, putting it back together, it's just a case again of putting the circlip back into the front of the regulator once you've done, and that's it.